Aloha nui e oko pakahi. We're so grateful that you've chosen to join us this evening, again for the launch of Lāhui Rising, ʻŌlelo ea, Envisioning ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi in our sovereign future. We want to make a stand and statement that we believe ea, our sovereignty, cannot be achieved without ʻŌlelo. And we really hope that tonight's panelists, we have amazing Kanaka leaders that will be joining us tonight to speak and to share and to help spark the conversations. One of the things that's unique about tonight's event, and as we pull up our schedule, we not only have our panel discussions, but we also want to, after the panel discussion happens, we hope that that inspires ideas and possibilities, and for you guys to share your visions and dreams. We want people to start to gather and share their ideas and share their visions for the future of ʻŌlelo. And even for Ohana who couldn't make it tonight, who would love to share, we'd love for them to add and contribute. At the end of this panel, at the end of the small group discussions, we want to take and organize some of these amazing visions and ideas. And we're going to take that and share it with our leadership here at Kamehameha. And to say, this is what the community wants. This is part of the vision for ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. And that's why we're so happy that all of you are here to be able to contribute that tonight. So I hope you guys are able to grab that and collect it. As our panelists are speaking, you might be inspired to take notes, add it right to your doc, mai ka'iloa, and we'll have the time at the conclusion of our guest panelists to have Ohana speak. So we want you guys to participate and dive into that as well. And we do have brownies to kind of hook you and keep you guys here. Okay, super critical. Okay. Before we begin, again, welcome to Kaʻiwakīloumoku. This is Ululani Hale. And the oli you guys heard was composed by Chiefess Ululani, connecting it to kind of calling out Kamehameha after he lifted the Naha stone, and calling him Kaʻiwakīloumoku, or the Iwa bird that snatches up and brings together all of the moku. And so the name of our center is Kaʻiwakīloumoku, and you guys are here in Ululani Hale. We have restrooms on either side of Ululani Hale, and so please, when you need to go, feel free to go out to either side. Okay. So, may we begin with our panelists, my introduction of our panelists. First, one of the most memorable voices you'll ever hear and know in Hawaii, a leader in the ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi movement, and a former Luna Ho'okele, or CEO of the Aha Punana Leo. She is a trailblazer in Hawaiian language media and broadcasting as the face and voice of Aha'i ʻŌlelo, and she is now the principal partner of Pilina First LLP. Her company has done amazing initiatives, including Moku Ola Honua and the coverage and broadcast of Mary Monarch. Please help me welcome the voice at the airlines and in the Lāhui, Amy Kalili, our beautiful Leo Oiwi. Aloha nui, Amy. Mai. Our next panelist hails from the Aina Kaulana o Nana Kuli. Some of his many kuleana and talents are as an Oiwi educator, a Hawaiian philosopher, a kakau uhi practitioner, an award-winning Hawaiian falsetto musician, and most importantly, a makua kane, a father to his 3 amazing keiki. He is now the principal at Kawaihona Kona'awao, back home in his hometown of Nanakuli Ea. Please help me welcome Dr. Kalehua Krug. Hailing from the ua ki pu'upu'o Waimea on the island of Hawaii, a long-time Haumana Kaiapuni, and eventually a kumu and kahu of the Punana Leo o Manua, where he is the makua and kumu of so many keiki, including my son Puamana. He has also helped with the nonprofit Ka'iwa Ho'ola'i, where he helps to promote ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi everywhere, for every family, and everywhere, I mean, not only just in Hawaii, talking about like Disneyland, ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi at Disneyland. Kahōkū is currently the manager of destination education for the Hawaii Visitors and Conventions Bureau. Please help me welcome Kahōkū Lindsey-Asing. Mahalo nui. Mahalo to our panelists. Please another big round of applause for our panelists joining us on stage. Okay. Hope you guys all have apu, and if you run out, please signal me or signal Mox, and we will send apu your way. It'll be like a magic lave that appears. Mahalo nui to our anaina again for joining us. But here we have some amazing Kanaka leaders in ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi and in many other fields where they take ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi into. And so I'd like to ask each of you to maybe share a hoʻolauna about yourself and your work around ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. And maybe we'll ho'omaka me Amy and holoma.
Hikino. Right. Aloha hiahi kako. O ka mua he mahalo ke ia oe e leana li'i na hoa apau o ke ia ke ana o kahua Uncle Ran. Auntie Jamie, mahalo nui. Maka ala mahalo ke kelepona ana mai a kona ia'u e ho'ea mai ke ia hiahi. Nui ka mahalo a me ka hano. Mamuli ho'i o na ano mea like ole a ka o kekahi mea he nui ka aloha I ku kula o ka mehameha nei no leila mahalo ho'i a o ko e na limahana o ka mehameha e pa'u ana I ka ho'i kai ka mana ano like ole a o ka ho'ola olalo kekahi. Ai o wau Amy Kalili no hilo mai au ua hanai ia ma leila no hale pa'ala'a o ia kahi noa o ka aina o ko'u ohana, ka ohana o ko'u makua kane o ia ho'i na Hawaii a me na Kalili. No ka aina haole no ko'u makua hine o Patricia Kalili I hana o ia he Patricia Patrick. He Kennedy kona makua hine no leila ike nui o ka ailiki ma kela au. No'u, makaholo na makahiki o ke kahi mea. Ale wau ike ina ike ka nui po'e. Ua hana o ia wau ma Mobile, Alabama. And I used to talk like this.
Hana.
Hey y'all, what y'all doing? No leila, a ohe wahi maui I ka ho'ea o keia kanaka I keia hana I keia la ma ko'u ala. A no leila nui loa ko'u mahalo I ka pomaikai I ke komo I loko o ke au kahi ho'ola ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. O ia i'o o ka umau hana pao a ue hana nei. Ale wau I mana'o e hana wau. Hiki ke komo ma hope I loko o ka umau hana pili I ka ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi ai ua hana ma ka punana leo. Ua hana ma ke kule nui ma ka hale kua mo'o kela mau au ua o wau ma ke kule nui a ma hope. Hana I ke kai mau hana ma ka aha punana leo lilo o wau ka luna ho'okele. Ua komo ma ka au papaho ke kahi na ana mea like ole a ue hana ni ua pili ma ke kahi ano I ka ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. Kamako pa o I hana o pili na first ke kahi. Ina a ale wau I komo I loko o keia au kahi a ale wau hana I loko o keia o I hana I keia manawa. No leila he ike wau he nina o ko a kela ka moemoea o keia mua aku a ka nui loa ua pomaikai wau a ike kino wau I ka waiwai o ka ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi ma na ano like ole. No leila he mahalo. Kiko pau.
Mahalo.
Next.
Kiko pau mahalo nui. Aloha nui kako e ka ohana. Mahalo kia hui ana ma ka pālama. Like ho'i me Amy he pukana wau me ka mehameha a ka oko'a. O iai ua puka wau mai ke kula ka mehameha ma kia au. No leila o wau o Kahōkū Lindsey-Asing Lindsey-Asing. No ka aina o Waimea, ka aina ki pu'u. Ka aina pu'u kini nui lehu a olu ho'i. O ia no ka ohana Lindsey a ka no ane'i no papakolea ka ohana Asing. No leila, pēlā, ko ukahua. A ka, mahalo ka ho'olauna ana mai, mahalo ke kona ana mai. E like me kālai ana he pukana wau mai ka punana leo o Waimea. Me ke kula kaiapuni o Waimea a ka maia wā a ole I lava na kula kaiapuni no leila wa koma wau I ke kula o Waimea Middle School. A leila, po mai ka I wau I ke komo ana I ke kula o ka mehameha. Ua hiki o ke ho'i ka piko ho'i ka punana ma ke ano he kahu o ka punana leo manoa. Ma ka mahina hea kia no ve mapa. Ma o ka kopa. Ma o ka kopa ua ha'alele wau, ua lele aku wau mai ka punana mai a komo I kia oihana hou. A kia kulana hou oia no ka ho'ona awa wana ho'o ka oiana I nā kanaka hoʻokipa malihini. No leila, na'u ia kulane ana hoʻokele hou I oi aku ka maikaʻi, I oi aku ka maikaʻi o ka mako mo ʻōlelo, I polo lea oia I o mana wahi a pau. No leila, mahalo nui a ʻoukou. Ai, nui na ninau e pane ai no leila lava paha keia. Mahalo.
Ke pahalo ka nei no kou aloha me ka makani hahana o ke olau niu I kaulu niu o pokai I luna nei no kahi e lalahai na punu a pauahi I ka makani ahe ahe like nei no o ke olau niu. Aloha nui.
Aloha.
Wau o Kalehua Krug he kupa no nanakuli no molokai kou ohana ne e kula noho I liliha makai nei alila kula kou I nanakuli pela I hike kuwai mākou I lila. Noho wau I lua lei ki manawa me ka umau keiki e kolu alila kou he keiki he mau makua I ke o kou. Ka ho'omaka kula kou ki hui kai a o Hawaiʻi ma ke kula nui Hawaiʻi ma manua. No lila, iau ma ke kula ki ma nei hokuku ana wau ka hau ki kinipopo peku. Lila, lele aku wau I Kaleponi e paani ai. I iau malila ua ano hahao wau I ka aino Hawaiʻi loko ke la hao ana. O mi mai pu mai kou makua kane, ma muli o ke la hoi mai wau I Hawaiʻi nei. I loko ke la hoi ana mai I ke kula mamanoa o ia kahi I hoʻomakai ki ala e oi ka olo Hawaiʻi. Ano lila, wao wau ma lila no ke kakai kahi o ka poe nona ki I ano o lelo kanaka ana. A o pu wau ma lila no ke koi o ke kahi auna nui o nā kanaka I o lelo wana ma ka o lelo Hawaiʻi. I me kuai ka o lelo Hawaiʻi, he o lelo kui o ka aina holo o koa. A ke li wale no, ke emi wale no, nā kanaka e o lelo wana I ka o lelo Hawaiʻi. A ole ka o lelo Hawaiʻi ola. E wewehe wau mahape no ka mea wa ano ike wau I loko ke la wao ke au ana ma ke kula nui. Pili ka o lelo Hawaiʻi I ka nohona Hawaiʻi, ke kuana ike Hawaiʻi, a me ke ola o ka aina, a me wewehe wau mahape. A ka wa ano ike wau. No lila, ike pū wau ke emi ana o nā kanaka I hanai ia maki o lelo no I hoʻomaka wau e hanai ka umau keiki e kolu ma ka o lelo Hawaiʻi. Maka hali lako ai ke komo ana o lako I loko na kula kaipuni maka papa e kolu holowana he kumu kaipuni wau ke la manawa ma ke kula kaipuni o waiau. Mai li laku ho maka wau hana ma ke kula nui a wao ma ke kai papahana o hoʻokula iwi he papahana e ho mako kau ana I nā kumu e lilo lako I mau kumu kaipuni. Ma hope o ke la maka deo I luna no ka papahana kaipuni a mai li laku ma ko ukulana nei ki manawa ma ka waihono kana awao I kana ni hahana o nana kuli. Ai, pela no. Mahalo nui mai ka eiki.
Mahalo. E leo mahalo I ko kako po e panela ka hoʻolauna. Okay. So quick translation. No. What we're going to do is actually for this papahana, he mea nui ka ʻōlelo, right? We're going to call it a ʻōlelo ea, ola ko kako ea, right? And we went back to the manao of Kaui Keuli. Ua mau ke ea o ka aina I ka pono. Or we like to twist that, ua mau ke ea o ka aina I ka ʻōlelo. Yeah, our ea lives because of our ʻōlelo. For this panela, I'm going to ask humbly our panelists to also convey in English some of the big ideas of the answer of the questions that we ask. And that way everybody can pa'a and maikai. But as you can see for these panelists, ʻōlelo is the kahua. ʻōlelo is critical in the worldview. And these are the things we're going to start to unpack. But I ask for our audience and for those who are at home who will watch this later on, if we use ʻōlelo haole as well to help to articulate. Mahalo nui no ke la no ka aya na mai. Okay, big question. What role do you think that ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi has in ea, our self-determination, our sovereignty, and life for our Lāhui? Again, what role do you think ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi has in ea? And what do you want to make a...
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah. Hiki no. Yes. Kako'o. Yeah, and he wahi mihi kia kalamai, because, we're just so ma'a that sometimes we forget to switch out of ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi.
Yeah, kala.
So, laki mai kaʻia oko, we will try our best as panelists up here. For me, when I think about what role ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi has in ea, in self-determination, sovereignty, and life for our Lāhui, we are nothing without our language, right? Like, our ʻŌlelo is what makes us who we are, right? And if we think about the colonization and all of the history throughout the world, right? The one thing that was taken away from everybody, besides their aina, was their ʻŌlelo, right? And the opportunities and the possibilities for them to continue to speak their language. So for us, or for me, being a kumupunana leo for the last, almost a decade, I always try to instill that in my kiki and to make sure that they know that they can be vivo ole and fearless wherever they go with the ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi that they have, because that is what makes them who they are. That is what makes us special, is our ʻŌlelo, and that is something that we need to continue. And we need to continue to inspire each other, especially all of our makua, and the generations before. We know all the pilikia and all the alaina that they've been through. And those that are coming up, right, they need to understand the history in order for us to holomua and continue to grow and strengthen our ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. Manavahi apau, like Diana said. I've been taking Ohana to Disneyland the last couple of years. One, because it's fun and magical and easy to spend your money. But ideally, we do want a makaikai and ka'apuni honua, but we need our kiki to see that it's exciting too, right? And that it can be heard all over the world. So I don't know if I answered the question at all, but yeah, ke kahi mai.
Oh, mahalo.
Okay, so I want to take a little spin off of that. As we take language and traverse the world with it, I think one of the things that's most important to the establishing the ea of the aina is actually prioritizing the aina. And by that I mean, bear with me, because it's one of the mantras that I use, is that the life of life itself needs us to learn our language. And the life of life itself needs us to learn our language. And what I mean by that is that ea in and of itself is something that keeps something alive. So with the land being alive, it needs to breathe. And in that ea, the language is like a bridge or a framework that knowledge travels through or with. That's what carries knowledge. And so we've been in a pretty desolate situation as a people, as humanity dwelling in this geographic area. But for this land to actually have ea, for this land to actually live, we need to couple our ʻŌlelo with our ike. That you simply cannot, and what I'm saying, not to disagree, but you simply cannot just take ʻŌlelo to Disneyland. It has to start from our ike. And I think that when we start talking about these ideas of land, of culture, of knowledge, that it all has to meld together. Because the ʻŌlelo has been kind of in a holding pattern, and thanks to churches and educational movements like the Kaipuni program that's kind of teaching English education in ʻŌlelo Hawaii, that now is a time that ʻŌlelo Hawaii has to move and to sit in its rightful place, which is upon an indigenous framework. And so that's the ea, that in actuality, that the words alone, the grammar alone, is just a vehicle to transmit an ideology that we need to use to actually help our land live again.
Mahalo.
Yeah.
Mahalo.
Hashtag what he said.
That's right.
I mean, yes, again, to start going back to where Kahōkū started, and I think he mana'o paku ike o maluna o kaui ho'opuka mai nei e Kalehua, and this isn't only the case for ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. I think it's the case of all indigenous languages that, to Kalehua's point, right, the ike and the knowledge that is actually ours is literally codified in our language. And so while, history practices this actual knowledge of who we are, our ancestral knowledge can absolutely be talked about, I think can be transmitted in certain ways and to a certain extent, arguably in any language, right? It doesn't really have to be English. But the true essence of what it is, it just sits right in our ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. And I think for me, and I think a lot, ike wau nui ka poʻe ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi loko o keia lumi. And so I think for my fellow ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻiers in the lumi, when you actually conduct whatever it is, your business, raise your family, use ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi as your actual constant medium of communication, there's just a different action that's happening. So it's something maybe as simple or millennial as that, but I think it's evidence of kind of this notion of who we are, and again, to Kalehua's point, this actual life essence, and taking that ea and using that as the word for sovereignty and our own self-determination. I don't see how that happens, manifests authentically, if not through and in ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi.
Mahalo. Whew. Hashtag what they said. Just mahalo again. To me, the frame, the key pieces I got was there is no ʻŌlelo is the key to ea. ʻŌlelo is the key to our identity. But ʻŌlelo and the kahua of ʻŌlelo being strengthened by the ike of our aina, of our cultural practices. And I really want to applaud some of those perspectives for us to think about in the audience. How do we strengthen that within our families, within our communities? And so mahalo nui for helping to lay that out. Now with that as the kahua and ʻŌlelo being so critical, I think this is an area where I kind of want you guys to dream big. What is your dream state for ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi? And how do you think that we can collectively get there? And maybe we'll start on this end and go that way this time.
All right. And maybe we'll do a couple of puni on this. Nui na manao. And maybe I'll just start my initial thoughts on the subject. There's certain, I think, indicators maybe that come to mind for me. And one of them, it's not super kiku'i, it's a little lofty, but I think getting to a place where, and this isn't my line, I've totally stolen this from someone, getting to a place where ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi isn't novel anymore, that's holomua for me, where it's not unusual. And not just for us, the kaiaulu, our Lāhui Hawaiʻi, anyone, it should not be unusual in Hawaii to hear ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. And even though, over the past 40 years, there's been a lot of effort even prior to that, nui ka holomua, but absolutely. I mean, there's a percentage of people in Hawaii who have not ever heard a conversation take place in ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. And when they do, they're like, wow, what's that? So, and I think that may come to fruition if and when, of course, more people are speaking and it's absolutely used in as many contexts as any other language is used in. And so, of course, there's piles of research on this, and those who are the greater academicians than me know more about this kind of stuff, and reversing language shift and all of that, and the various domains that language needs to be used. I mean, that's perhaps one perspective on the question, right? Is first and foremost, intergenerational transmission of language and just having language continue to be used in our homes and by our families. I think for us in Hawaii, having educational system, well, that once again is taught through ʻŌlelo Hawaii is another step in that direction. It'd be great if that were well-resourced. I think that's another thing, and I don't know that this is ʻŌlelo Hawaii specific. I think it's everything Hawaii. When we're not fighting for every little inch, that'll be amazing. When it comes to things ʻŌlelo Hawaii, everything, it's just like constantly, this is not a complaint. This is just, I think, fact, right? We're always pushing stuff uphill. And so getting to that place where decision makers, those who have and wield resource, understand the importance, I think that's another thing. And again, getting back to the domain thing, absolutely having media and hearing and seeing ʻŌlelo Hawaii be used in media is an amazing thing. Even having ʻŌlelo Hawaii be used in our halls of justice and decision making. And so a lot of that just comes back to capacity. But I think it also depends a lot on people just realizing that, one, our ʻŌlelo does have capacity and we can use it in all of these contexts. So that's my first pass at the end. So.
I love that. That's a really good start. Before we jump, I want to just get a raise hand. Okay, how many people here want to continue to learn ʻŌlelo Hawaii? Anybody in here? Okay, how many in here learned ʻŌlelo Hawaii first as an adult? Okay, how many here learned as a keiki? Wow. I want to acknowledge the work. We're at the 40-year mark of the Aha Punana Leo. And Amy, Kahōkū, many of our kumu, our limahana, our ohana have been a huge part of that. And so I just want to applaud 40 years of ʻŌlelo Hawaii. As Anake Namaka, our ohanas, as we're talking about a honua ʻŌlelo where everybody ʻŌlelos, we have to remember that at one point ʻŌlelo was completely banned, right? And we almost lost it, if not for those kupuna who held firm. And so I think starting to envision, I just wanted to set the context again for us that we've come a long way, but there's so much more to go as we continue to jump to Kahōkū on your dream state for ʻŌlelo Hawaii. And how do you think we can collectively get there? I want to just ohano that.
Mahalo. And I think I can segue into my pane for this Nino, but as a way to continue to ho'ohano, if everybody can repeat after me, ka'auhua.
Ka'auhua.
Ka'auola.
Ka'auola.
So ka'au is 40 or kanaha. Makahiki, right? That's how you count. That's how our Lāwaiʻa have counted with the Don't ask me because I'm not from the Lāwaiʻa. I'm from Waimea. But Aha Punana Leo is celebrating 40 years of language revitalization and a'oa'o. And, through the Punana Leo systems and the 13 kula that we have throughout all of our islands now, and hopefully more, we have been able to not only shape and all of our keiki, but all of our ohana and their kupuna as well, right? We always tell our ohana, and there's a lot of kumu punana leo in here that I see. So mahalo ya oko. Aha Punana Leo is not just for the keiki, it's for the ohana holo-oko'a. Yeah, and that's what makes Aha Punana Leo special and why they've been able to do what they've been doing for the last 40 years, especially with Amy coming in as one of the alakai. But we also have Anake Namaka Rollins, who always makes it a point to say, and I think this is good to remind you folks too, because it's your kuleana to remind others, but aya elua ʻŌlelo kuhelu o ka moku aina. Yeah, our state has 2 official languages. The first is ʻŌlelo Hawaii. The second is English, but the first is ʻŌlelo Hawaii. Yeah, so make sure you make it a point to let people know, because when we talk about ʻŌlelo Hawaii being a novelty and really being something cute, yeah, because I'm sure you've all had those instances where it's like, oh, your keiki speaks Hawaiian, so cute, yeah. Yeah, it's not cute. That is what we do. That is who we are. I can count so many experiences when I was little, walking in the store with my mom, and she's, ʻŌlelo Hawaii ana ia'u. And then they're like, oh, what is he saying? And I just get apu iwa. So I think for me, my dream state coming from kuana ike of a kumu and as a makua and helping ohana would be a place in Hawaii, everywhere in Hawaii, where any keiki ʻŌlelo Hawaii can go and hear ʻŌlelo Hawaii and not be pu'iwa and not be surprised about it, because it's just what it is, right? We don't get pu'iwa when we hear everybody speaking Kepani, Japanese, ʻŌlelo Filipino, and all the other ʻŌlelo Polenekia Kekahi. It's just, as language people, we know, and we want to hear all these languages too, but we should be able to hear ʻŌlelo Hawaii just as much, and if not more, mahawaiʻi. Yeah, and going back to what Kalehua said, right? We need to malama that ea ia ne'i and our aina, because how are we going to malama everybody else if we're not makokau, right? Same thing. You're not going to go anywhere, ho'ahila your ohana, if you don't have everything ready to hit it. So e hit it kako, and hopefully all the many keiki punana leo, kaiapuni, kulani akea, Kaʻiwakīloumoku, and all these kula that are doing such great work, all their hana won't go unnoticed, and all these keiki can continue to ʻŌlelo Hawaii to other people not in their immediate setting. So, yeah.
Mahalo.
Come on.
So my, if I have a moimoya, it starts off because ʻŌlelo's not my end game, you know. ʻŌlelo is like a stage towards an end game. So I'm going to kind of talk about the end game. That we have ecological stability, you know. We can curb the rate of extinction of our birds and our plants and our animals, because that to me is that's the end game, and I'm not even, and you know, farther out than that is this idea of, for me now, is farther out than that is the idea of human food production and sustainability, because that's a human issue. You know, right now, the way that we live, and I am prefacing right now because it'll get back to ʻŌlelo, but the way that we live is so far away from where our kupuna left us, you know, that as we walk through this conversation of language, that language actually shapes the way you think. As you gain higher levels of cognition in ʻŌlelo Hawaii, the resultants become like indicators in your home, indicators in your community, indicators in the ecological world. That ʻŌlelo in and of itself is not going to, quote unquote, provide us ea, save. It's not the pu'u kalahala. And that's why, for myself, the end game is way beyond ʻŌlelo. We need to burst through ʻŌlelo. And while we burst through ʻŌlelo, and I say this very cautiously, and I'm in a safe space, you know. But you see my face. But as we burst through learning our language, we must situate it in our mo'olelo. We must situate it in our ways. We must situate it in our practices, because our kupuna left us with the best practices. That progress is behind us, it is not in front. And that's got to be said. That the language that I hope lives again is a language that is from generations back. Those folks that left us, Hawaii as the paradise everybody wants to steal, it was that status, that standing of paradise that made us desirable. And our people helped to foster that. And the language is a part of that, and it's embedded in our language. But what that means, though, in that end game, to get to ecological stability, is that we have to bring our language back. Our language has to be used to decipher our stories. The stories we have to bring back. Well, you know, I don't care who people pray to, but we have to bring back the behaviors of our spiritual animism. We have to, we must. Without it, because that's the best practice. We cannot keep staying where we're at. And to get to that point, it's not just an ʻŌlelo paved road.
Yeah.
Mahalo. Maika e no. I mean, this is such a rich. Is there anything else you guys feel like adding? I know as thoughts were coming through, this vision of a dream state for ʻŌlelo. Mahalo for sharing the vision of protecting, because without our aina, he hala. Without Hawaiʻi, he hala. And so that's, I think, a very important point, and how ʻŌlelo can also help guide and influence our actions on aina. Our kupuna left it there for us through oli, through mele, through hula, through pule, through stories, and ʻŌlelo. And so I think it's really, really powerful how ʻŌlelo can help shape that.
Well, I just was going to say what Amy was talking about, that while you were talking, it reminds me of like Kahele Duklo and Kaimana Kasi and Kili Namau, that we're actually seeing like things change at the decision-making level. And it's really important. I mean, and it's, while I was thinking, I was looking at the youngsters in here, is that I know it sucks to like think about being a politician, but think about a Hawaiian ideology of a Hawaiian speaker having a majority seat in the legislature. Yeah, and I know it sucks, right? I don't want to.
Not me, not it.
No, it's powerful. It's powerful because a lot of you guys have been a part of developing leaders. What is the power of having, and this is not on the questions I threw at you guys, but what is the power of having ʻŌlelo as a part of your kahua in whatever field you want to take on as a leader? How does that influence your leadership and the things that you decide on and do? I would love to get a quick take on that.
Yes. Answer to everything. Yep. And one of the things I was thinking about, which ties into this, goes back to that question about the power of ʻŌlelo as it relates to self-determination. One of the things that I was not a Haumana Kaiapuni, don't have keiki that, I have ohana keiki, ikomo, iko papahana. But one thing that is crystal clear, that I'm absolutely sure of is, to your point about the 40 years, and prime example, all of the ohana and haumana that have come through the papahana, right? And this papahana that we know isn't perfect, right? There's so many things that could be better about our papahana ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi, amana kula ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. But the ano o na keiki ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi, there is this sense of vivo ole, ike vau, ale vau ike ina mea pau a ka imi ana vau. It's just a thing. And so the importance of that, and I think there's, even though that's where I was going right there, even though I wasn't on keiki, okapapahana, the same thing I think happened with me, right? And getting involved, and I think another thing, right? Everybody in the papahana ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi, nobody's a specialist, right? Everybody's a generalist. We do all the things. Anything, everything, we do all the things. Ina pono, okay, imi ana vau, lo ana ka poʻe kako o ia'u, I have no idea how to do that. Pono e lo'a ke kanaka, e imi vau lo'a ka poʻe kokua. That's pretty much my engagement in media and exactly how it happened. No, nothing, no background in it. There was an opportunity, somebody's gonna do it. I know people are gonna help me. Okay, let's go. So I think that essence and whatever that is, I looking back over the last 40 years and even looking at a lot of the things that are happening now and looking at the leaders getting to the point about the people who are now sitting at certain tables, and me ke aloha nui I na ohana malahaina kekahi, but just looking at that community, and watching some of the things that are going by and some of the leaders that are rising to the top, and even the halavai with the kalana, the county meetings and the great committee, and ho'ea ka ohana ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi, ku ho'opuka mana'o I kaikaloa ma'e alo'a ka mana'o, that to me that's just priceless. And it speaks to, that in and of itself, as we're talking about dream state, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't actually acknowledge Ua nui ka holomua. For a couple of hanaona aku nei, we in one moe moe right now. So, being acknowledging of that and appreciating that and the blessing that we have to be able to be a part of that is huge. But yeah, there's just something that happens when you have the opportunity to actually use your ʻŌlelo in that way.
Love that. Mahalo.
Yeah, and I guess ke kai mana'o hope before we holomua i ka nina o Hawaii. Piggybacking on what both these panelists said, and me being the newer of the bunch.
Fresh.
Fresh. I was able to come through the planning of the moemoeā, and now I'm in the moemoeā, but I'm still here helping to add to the collective moemoeā, but also now this end game that we should strive for, right? And use ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi as a medium, right? As a pathway. But there's all these other things that we need to kokua and malama. But when Amy brought up just ke ano ona keiki ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi, and I'll say keiki ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi because it doesn't matter if these keiki are Hawaiʻi or not, and whatever meheu they are, whatever nohona they are, hiki no, keiki that ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi, just have it together when they're out in public. And it is very, very, very clear to see. There's some makua in here that, you know, there's some makua in here, yeah. There's a few examples in here that, you know, have been on Huaka'i with us when we go out to certain places. Our favorite place to Huaka'i is the capital, for many reasons. But when we go to these places, we don't necessarily ask the ohana to come because I know these keiki will be my ka'i. If I could ask the makua to come, it's to help carry all the ukana because I cannot. But when we're amongst other kula that are not ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi, that doesn't have ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi as their foundation, our keiki also see that too. And they question us, like, why is that keiki acting like this? Why is that keiki climbing, like that? And our pana is different every single time, but just the fact that they're able to think about that and ask these questions about how the lavena and how these other keiki are acting and not like them is amazing, right? So through ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi, there's this lavena, there's the ike, there's this nohona, but it doesn't stop at the kula, right? It carries on at home, and we need everybody's kako'o to continue to foster that so that they can become vivo ole and go into these kulana make kapitala, right? Become a politician, become aha I ʻŌlelo ola, hi'ikua hi'ialo. Laiana, he's definitely a product of the kula kaiapuni and aha puna leo system. So that we can make sure all these keiki have the opportunities that everybody else has through ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. So yeah, I would encourage everybody to visit a kula kaiapuni if you ever get the chance, or kako'o there, fundraising events and stuff, because you will see it is truly an ohana event like no other. Yeah.
Mahalo.
I think what they're talking about is something that, and I know they haven't shared much about it, but I know the folks that have undertaken the journey of learning language, that it actually provides courage. It actually provides purpose. And I think, on the psychological side of the development of our children is that when you do implement programs of ʻŌlelo, not only do they have language ability and capability to access what the ancestors wrote about, that ideology, that worldview that they were pumping into the newspaper week after week after week, to learn that and to actually regain their birthright. But they can pull courage from them too, that the language is actually that, the tunnel by which they can pull courage and pull purpose and pull ideas that they can share today. I mean, we all use it right now. Ike ia ke kanaka makana ʻŌlelo. We're using ʻŌlelo no eau. We're using these phrases to build courage amongst all of us. Part of the imperative is that for us to actually get to a point where our educational pathways, our nutritional pathways, our medical pathways are re-indigenized. We have to, kind of reinvigorate and reinstitute our worldview in all of our children, and even in ourselves. Even when I learned, that's what I got out of it. When I learned, not just the kids, but me, myself, I gained more courage than I ever had in my life. I started to understand clearly what my life's purpose was, where I was floundering before that. And then, you use the skills that you get, that you have, these predispositions that you have to have higher understanding. You go through educational processes to gain knowledge and to gain ability and to gain analysis. And we start analyzing, you understand that the systems that educate our children aren't ours. That our kids are actually still being indoctrinated by us. And the ʻŌlelo is that emancipatory strategy that we can use to help our mind, our eyes see what's actually going on. That we don't have schools that are K-12 hula focused schools. But think of the dancers that would come out of schools like that. Think of the mastery, and that's us. That's us. The weavers, the tattoo artists, all of these things, if that was our schooling, think of how vibrant our culture could be. We are merely a hobby right now, and we're kicking ass. I'm for real. And so just think if we could emancipate the way that we see educational processes, and all of our kids come through our ways. There's still math and there's still science and still, and I know about that. The thing that is the most imperative that helps us, and I think we can feel them, is that they need to believe in their own value, their own intrinsic value, Hawaii's value, and believe that that's the road that's best for us.
See the power. It's ʻŌlelo is so much more than just language. It is the pathway. It is a shift in paradigm. It is a shift in values and worldview. And it allows our young leaders to be brave and to be bold and to stand not just on their own, but now on the shoulders of giants, of kupuna who came before, who laid the path. And for a lot of us families who put our keiki in it, there's a big reason why we put them in there, was so that they have those opportunities. And so mahalo to our kumu who are doing it day to day. And our ohana in the communities are building our future leaders. Now here's a question I want to throw at you guys. Okay.
Bingo.
Now, in your opinion, what are one or two things, because I know we can have a monster list, that Kamehameha can do to help our Lāhui achieve the envisioned state of ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi? And again, we're a trust established by our amazing princess, the mo'opuna of Kamehameha Ekahi, who had an amazing vision to keep alive our people through education. Now, through this trust, we're able to serve so many, but would love to hear what are the things that we can do? What can Kamehameha do to continue to achieve this vision and this desired state? I'll let you guys decide. Yeah.
Okay. No.
Well, I'll just start it off because I think there's a lot, and naturally we always point to, money, give us more money. But I don't think that's been going on for a little while, and the needle's slightly moving, but not as fast as we need it to move. No offense. So it's about like the human capacity of Kamehameha. So there's one thing is human capacity, the other thing to me is land. And so, I understand that the land usage for Kamehameha is economic generator, so that they have financial capacity to be able to support. I think though the crux that, for me, what Kamehameha can do is that at least for the majority of their lands, put this indigenous ideology to play. To actually provide multiple, not just a few, but plenty of contexts that help to reshape the paradigms we live in. Because I look at it and I've said a lot of stupid stuff in the back room too, right? Conversations with people from Koihao. And I said, as a leader in a Hawaiian organization, why do we choose that structure? Why do we choose those decision-making policies? Why do we choose that level of, and it's just, my internal, what I observed. It seems to be this really tight, wound business. And the actual Hawaiian-ness of it I think could improve. And I think when you improve the Hawaiianness of the system, and that's an example of that, when we are given the power to determine ourselves in all that we do, why would we choose that? And then why would we choose the way that we use land? And why would we choose? And I understand that there's a big status that they have on Bishop Street. I understand. And I think money is important. But there has to be something else equally important that we all can manifest ourselves in, which is our culture, our language, our land. And that's one thing. So utilizing land for those purposes. And I know that there is a little bit of that going on. I'm just saying that the majority, a lot of land, using that way. And then political advocacy. Because I think, when we talk about language, why I brought up courage is because in those spaces, I know there's a lot of liability issues and a lot of legal issues to talk about that I have not been schooled to know. What I do know is that when you have power and when you have influence and when you have money, it comes with a weight. And when you have that power, when you have that weight, it must be wielded to help our place.
Yeah.
And I think if we can focus that level of advocacy with the power and with the land and with the money, when you have really courageous leaders, and I'm not saying Jack's not, I mean, when you have like really courageous leaders who are pushing envelopes, you might see some paradigm shifts, especially at the legislature.
Oh, mahalo.
Yeah.
My God, mahalo. Great ideas. Beautiful. Kahōkū?
So I think going off of your mana'o and aina, and I know that, the trust is fortunate to have, so many different pieces of aina on every single island, but I think something else that Kamehameha could do, hopefully open to do, is going into all of our rural areas in Hawaii, right? Miloli'i, Ka'u, and I'm only going to speak for Hawaii Island because that's my default, but reaching out to all of these places that may not have the necessary tools, resources, and access to all the pomeka'i that Kamehameha has to offer, right? All of these programs require them to either leave where they're from, come over here, do it, and ho'i. But if there's something where they can go and stay in their aina, make a difference where they're from, help their kaiaulu, komopiha i ka hana, so that they can continue to inspire their own kaiaulu where they're at, so that you don't have to see that you have to ha'alele in order to make a difference, because we shouldn't. We shouldn't have to ha'alele our aina, our piko, to make a difference. So providing more program, I know we talked about kala and funding, that's always useful, but we need that physical presence, we need the curriculum, we need the education, we need all of these opportunities. And I think for me, one of the things that inspired me to be interested in Kamehameha was ho'ike and song contests, right? So when we talk about the arts and culture, we need the arts in all of these places too, because there are so many keiki that have performing arts as their background and their interest, but along with that, there's also STEM, along with that, there's all these other things. So being able to feel and listen to the kaiaulu and, across Hawaii, and understand how they want to be helped, right? What is it that they need, as opposed to here's what we think you need. So I think that's something to think about.
Mahalo, love it.
Holy cow. I'm going to go back to a previous comment that I made, and that's acknowledging the nui o ka holemua, i'ikeia aikeia, and I think that's absolutely true with Kamehameha and the course correcting that we've all seen at this kula and this institution over the past X number of years, whatever that may be. And a lot of that did translate to support of things ʻŌlelo Hawaii. So just want to acknowledge that. And I think there's obviously, right, there's low-hanging fruit to both Kalehua and Kahōkū's mana'o about kala, right, and resource and support. And as I'm sitting here listening to them and thinking about that, there has been a good amount of that as well in recent past. I think, one of the things, and now I'm wearing my Aha Punana Leo hat, is and again, Kamehameha has done this, but just to bring it back up to the top, and bring it back up to the top of the conversation, is supporting the programs that exist and that have proven track records, you know, and this isn't only a Punana Leo thing or a Kaiapuni thing, but I am a proud Kamehameha graduate. But, I mean, you know, putting Kamehameha's resources into the things that are working in the community and identifying that and helping to further uplift that. So not just about helping them break even, but how do we actually uplift some of these amazing programs that are happening in the community in ways that allows them to grow in the way that they know is best for them to grow. And I know that it's a challenge. This comes back, I think, to, you know, what Kalehua was talking about, and the challenges with running not only a multi-billion-dollar, you know, corporation and trust. Don't want to minimize that at all. On top of that, that has, you know, a 501c3 status that has to be maintained. And I think we're all absolutely aware of that. And on any given day, we'll come back out to, you know, fight for and support that. And so, you know, there are those challenges, but to Kalehua's point, there's always ways to push needles, you know, and I think some of these programs in the community are a prime example of that. Some of the things that we see that have happened, pili iko ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi, me ko hoʻola ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi. Ale loa I nā ua hahai wale I ke ala I hoʻomoe mua ia. Ale loa, ka aha punana leo, ke la, ka wai hoʻomaka ai, malia e ku e kana wai ana. So, you know, a lot of these, to Kalehua's point about being bold, again, I understand business. And there's this, you know, risk management is super important. But using the power, the economic, political, social power that Kamehameha wields in ways that absolutely take risk assessment into consideration, but how do we start to push some needles? And arguably, there may be many examples in other indigenous cultures, you know, throughout the world in ways that corporations have come up with some of these ways to do things different, that then allows those corporations to act in a little bit different ways, that allows resources to flow in different ways, that have a greater impact in community. So that was a round, or I don't know what kind of response, but point being, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, I think, that can be addressed as it relates to ho'ola ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi by Kamehameha. But again, I think a lot of it does come back to some of the fundamental ways that Kamehameha operates and has to operate.
Oh, mahalo nui. And just the thoughts you guys just shared, how does Kamehameha utilize the leverage and weight that it has to influence policy, to influence how we care for land, to reinvest in community. We need community centers. Imagine every community had a gathering place that was built where they could have the programming there, where ʻŌlelo, culture, hula, all of the things Hawaii could thrive. And I think those are some amazing suggestions and ideas that we want to push forward. And you know, we just want to mahalo you guys for sharing just a little. And again, this is just like just a little bit of a sprinkle of the richness that is out there and the access that you get the more you dive into ʻŌlelo. ʻŌlelo has the power to kind of transform how you see the world. And each of our panelists are amazing examples of that, and using that worldview to make the current world and place a better place, and impacting it in a way through education, through media, through storytelling, through the visitors that are going to be coming here, and helping to shape the worldview that they'll start to see, but really are leading our opio, who are going to be the leaders of our Lāhui. So I want a huge paʻipaʻilima for our panelists here tonight. Mahalo nui Amy, Kahōkū, Kalehua. You guys are absolutely amazing.
Mahalo yaʻoe.
Now, as we mentioned earlier in the format, this is where we want to kind of shift. You guys were just kind of at the seat of getting, hopefully, inspiration and ideas and possibilities. We want you guys to start to process that right now, because we're going to do a short break, and when we come back, we're going to have you guys in small groups. And in these small groups, we really want you guys to envision and dream about the possibilities of what is the future of our sovereign Lāhui. What role do you think ʻŌlelo Hawaiʻi has in ʻea, in self-determination, in sovereignty? We want to hear your guys' ideas, your thoughts. And again, these are all things that we want to share back with our leadership. We're going to have a 5-minute break, and I promise you guys brownies. We're going to come through with brownies. And also, because it's the season of Makahiki, we also have uala. And uala, a lot of the symbology of that is to awaken. So I know a lot of us been sitting a long time, so let's get a little bit of uala, e ala mai, e ho'e'eu. Start to think about your process and your idea, and our facilitators and our recorders will be there to help capture somebody's momi. But again, another huge round of applause for our panel.